What's up, everybody? You're back on the other side tonight with me, Mike G, and I'm bringing you the story of an absolute legend in the UFC. This man competed for 15 years inside the cage and is second all-time on the UFC knockout list with 13. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy is a fighter, a friend, an inspiration, and a true badass. Matt Brown, how are you, sir?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you again for coming on the channel. It is a true honor. You were born in the booming downtown metropolis of Bowersville, Ohio. Tell me a little bit about being a kid and growing up.
It's just a tiny town, man. Population of 200.
Wow.
So just a lot of outdoors and kind of doing whatever you want, I guess, for the most part, because not a lot to do. Only 2 or 3 friends around at a time. Just play a lot of sports, and that's about it, really. Ride dirt bikes and go fishing, and play in the wooded area.
Woods.
Yeah, play in the woods, and jump your bikes off of stupid shit, and try to build new things. Just didn't have iPhones and shit, so you had to get creative.
The good old days, man. A lot of fans are aware of your struggles as a young man. You've been real open about it and shared. For the people who aren't, when did you start struggling? When did things go bad, and what happened?
I guess it was probably like high school, early high school, like sophomore year.
Okay.
And just started getting kind of disenchanted with being in a small town, and feeling like I was built for something more, and not really fitting in with a lot of people. Everybody was kind of content with the life that they were, path that they were headed on, and I just wasn't, and didn't really feel like I was part of a certain circle or group or anything. And so you call it struggles, but I just call it what my life was. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Alrighty. I heard a story about your first fight. Actually started out as a trip to see a friend fight.
Mm-hmm.
How did that play out? How did that happen?
Yeah, my dude was going to fight. He was supposed to fight Wes Sims, actually. Wes didn't show up, though, so he ended up not fighting. But, yeah, I mean, that was about it. I was going to see my guy fight. One of the ways I kind of like describe my first fight experience was, cocaine got me into fighting, and fighting got me out of cocaine, right? So
okay.
we were just partying and having a good time and watching my dude fight. It was like you see back in the on a movie or something, where they're smoking cigars and betting on the fights, and there wasn't no athletic commission or nothing. So I just went to the bathroom, did a line, come out, and I heard on the speaker, they're like, who wants to fight the champion? I was pretty fired up right then, right? I said, I'll fight him. So I ran across the street. There was a sporting goods store where I bought a mouthpiece and a cup. There was a restaurant across the street where I boiled the mouthpiece. Come back, paid $30 to the promoter, and I was fighting that night, and I ended up kicking his ass. So it worked out well.
So the restaurant just let you back in the kitchen. You said, I got to fight. That's it. No questions.
I guess I don't remember all the details with that. But yeah, I mean, they were cool about it. They just let it go, let it happen. They let me use their microwave, and
that's awesome.
An hour later.
Wow. How did you end up on the Ultimate Fighter, Team Rampage versus Team Forrest?
I just tried out, honestly. So at the time when I had the tryouts, I was living in New York City. I was living a pretty good life. Actually, I kind of turned myself around at that point. Fighting had brought me to a lot better group of people and got me out of the little town and everything. So living up in New York City, I was a personal trainer on the Upper West Side with a high-end clientele, making some good money, living a pretty good life, and was kind of debating on whether I wanted to keep fighting or not. At least, or pursue. I was going to keep fighting, but whether I wanted to pursue the UFC, because back in that day, it was like it's different than it is now, where I think now if you fight long enough and are decent enough, you're going to get a shot at least. You may not get in, you may not succeed, whatever, but you'll get your shot.
Right.
Then it was like a distant thing. So I was kind of debating on whether I wanted to even continue pursuing that. But they had the tryouts over in Newark. So I just took the day off work, went over and tried out with no expectations, not really thinking anything was going to happen, and ended up making the show though.
If you could, if you could share a story from that season that maybe didn't make it on TV, maybe something funny that happened behind the scenes, is there anything you could think of that you'd share?
They showed most of the big stuff, honestly. It wasn't, I thought we had a pretty good season. There was a couple of bad apples, but honestly, like, I think everybody there was pretty serious and was there to succeed. And I thought we had a pretty good season. And, it was also, it was a long time ago too. It's hard to remember everything, but
right.
I was also uber focused. I was there to train and try to beat these guys' asses. So I didn't really have a whole lot of shenanigans, and I wasn't involved in shit, and I kept to myself for the most part. I'd come home and eat my food, and take my shower and get in my bed. Fuck all those other guys, man. I wasn't trying to make friends.
Right. I have heard I think you're the sixth guy I've interviewed that was on The Ultimate Fighter. Some of the stories I've been told when we weren't recording. Oh my God. Let's see. The Ultimate Fighter season 7 finale. You got your first official UFC win against Matt Arroyo. Talk a little bit about how that win felt. Was it a sense of validation, relief, kind of a, oh shit, this is my job now moment? What was that like?
I'm trying to remember. The thing was, like, I'd already fought him before too. And he was like calling me out for a rematch. And the first time I fought him on 24 hours notice. So I was like, well, now I have a whole camp. Like, I'm definitely going to beat you. So
sure.
I thought it was like a shoe-in. I was back down in my natural weight class. I think if I would have got an opponent from the show, it probably would have been more difficult, actually. But I was pretty confident going in. But afterward, I don't know. I don't really remember it that well, to be honest, man. It's so long ago. But it was I'm sure it was relief, man, because you're not really like in the UFC until that.
Right.
You got to win the finale too. I'm sure it felt great, man. I just don't really remember that well, to be honest. It was a long time ago.
Gotcha. UFC 145, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Coming into that fight, he was considered extremely hard puzzle to crack. He had the karate career. He was just coming off the crazy head kick knockout over, I believe it was Dan Stitchin. What were your thoughts on him as an opponent? And tell me how that fight played out.
I kind of knew what I was getting into when you take that fight, right? Like, you can't try to play his game. You can't sit on the outside and do that kind of explosive movement stuff. So my whole camp, everything I trained for and everything in my mind was just keep going forward. And you just got to bite down your mouthpiece and just keep walking forward no matter what hits you. And I think I did that pretty well in the fight. And I also knew that he didn't necessarily have the most well-rounded MMA game. I still don't think he does. So, a lot of people say that, I think they didn't watch the fight closely. They say that I just took him down the whole time. Like, I stood with him a lot too. And it's just a matter of fighting him the right way. There's a blueprint to beat a guy like that. And, and I just kept on that blueprint, man. That was probably the first fight I ever had in my life where people were like talking shit to me and saying I was going to get my ass kicked. And, there was he had a lot of hype behind him and, a lot of people talking about him. So I think it was kind of like a breakout fight for me where, people were really watching and paying attention to what I was doing. And, and he obviously, he brought a lot of that attention from his side. But one thing I always found, and particularly, from that fight was that, when the pressure's on, that's when I thrive the most. That's when I do my best performances. And I like it better when, someone is pushing the case against me.
Yeah. I want to talk about the Eric Silva fight. Out of all your UFC fights, I don't think I can think of another one of yours to where it seemed like everything came together as perfectly for you, maybe as that fight, and it was badass to watch. What made that performance so special?
Again, I think a lot of it was just that pressure, man. It was in my hometown. That was a main event. It was my first main event. You know, excuse me. More of my family was there than at my family reunion. Like I said, it was close to my hometown. It was a lot of pressure. He was another up and comer. I knew he was juiced to the gills. I'd watched his highlights, and he looked like just an absolute killer. All of the stars were aligned for him to come in and put on the show and be the man. And I just embraced that role, and just really thrived in that pressure setting, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite fight you were in, to be honest. After that win, you take on Ruthless Robbie Lawler in, I believe it was a #1 contenders match, because he went on to fight for the title after that. How did that fight play out, and what are your thoughts today on the decision of the judges?
Oh, I definitely feel like I won that fight. I don't think it was a robbery, so to speak. So, that's one of them. I'm not like hating on the judges for choosing him, because I don't really think it was a robbery. But I think if you know what you're watching when you're watching a fight, you would say I won that fight. With that said, you gotta give mad props to Lawler. I mean, that guy's just an absolute killer. I learned more in that fight than any other fight in my life, and Robbie taught me a lot of lessons, man. Getting in there with someone like him, kind of on the outside looking in when you watch his videos, and we're doing a lot of study on him, and he kind of seems like just a brawler, and you're like, dude, it's just gonna be a hard-nosed fight. You're gonna hit and get hit. And then you get in there with them and you realize like there's actually a lot of calculation behind what he's doing, and he's very intelligent in there and knows how to fight very well. And he reacts to things properly, which is not as common as you would think in fighting.
All right. I always felt like his footwork was maybe not considered as good as it was. I thought he had amazing footwork.
That's one of the things, yeah, for sure. I noticed when you're fighting him, because that's usually like one of the first things you kind of start judging someone on when you're in a fight, how they're moving their feet and how they're stepping and how big they're stepping, how quickly, whether they're gliding or taking steps up, kind of things like that. And I kind of felt it right away when I fought him. Like, he's calculated with what he's doing. He knows where he wants to be positionally.
Yeah. UFC Fight Night, Poirier versus Pettis. You take on and knocked out another legend in Diego Sanchez with a standing elbow that is still played on the highlight reels to this day. What makes your standing elbows, or hellbows as they've become known, probably the most devastating in UFC history?
I think it's just knowing like when to throw them more than anything. And not putting yourself in a bad position to throw them, not reaching or stretching for them, which I've done in the past too, but learning over time, feeling the time and the placement of those elbows. And also, I could get into the kind of the technical details of like learning how to use your shoulder. With Diego, I threw, it was like us throwing a ball from left field to home base. Like I just threw everything I had into it. He was just set up perfectly for it. But for the most part, like it's, the elbows aren't done that way. But he was just in that perfect position. So, so in a situation like that, I would say, it's all about the setup. When it comes to other situations, where you're clinching or where you're in tight or trying to step in with an elbow, it's more about timing, placement, and keeping your feet underneath you.
Yeah, that one against Diego, it was like you were Nolan Ryan throwing a fastball, dude. That thing had a wind up on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Your last fight and most recent fight was against Court McGee, um, and I think this is one of the coolest fights in UFC history, considering the past that you both went through, and the fact that you both are in the octagon at the same time. That was awesome. Um, did you know that would be your last fight? And if so, how nice was it going out on a knockout against someone as established as Court McGee?
No, I didn't know that was going to be my last fight. I planned on fighting again after that. Really, my plan was to fight on UFC 300 with Jim Miller. The UFC,
I
for
remember.
whatever reason, didn't make it happen. So that's when I kind of got a little maybe disappointed, or just just kind of felt like, all right, maybe it's just a sign that it's time. So, but yeah, at the time when I fought Court McGee, I had no intentions on retiring at that moment.
Gotcha. What was the hardest fight in your career?
Probably Robbie Lawler.
Okay. If there was a fight other than for the belt against a particular fighter that you would have loved to have had but never came about, what would that one be?
GSP. Yeah, I mean
Okay.
he's arguably the best ever.
Hmm.
I was right close to getting to fight him many times. So, not saying I would have beat him. Hopefully I would have, but didn't get the shot, and I would have loved to have had that fight.
What would the game plan against GSP be?
You got to beat his jab. I think that's the big thing, and obviously you have to stop his takedowns. But also, you got to keep pressure on him. So and you got to do that by beating the jab and beating the takedowns, and you keep moving forward on a guy like that. He kind of comes from that karate background too, where he likes that space and distance, like Steve Boy. But keeping that pressure forward, and I think if you keep that pressure forward and you can stop a couple of things that he does, the jab and the takedown mainly, I think he's breakable in that area.
Okay. Speaking of GSP, both in their prime, GSP versus Anderson Silva, who wins?
It just depended if Anderson was able to stop his takedown, because that's what GSP's game plan is going to be, and I highly doubt that he would stop his takedown. So I would pick GSP, but if Anderson in his prime, if he stops one takedown, that might be all that he needs.
Yeah, it might be a repeat of Chael Anderson without the mistake at the end, I think.
Yeah, I think it'd be similar, but except GSP would probably pass guard more, so it'd be harder for. I think GSP is a lot more aware of submissions.
Mm-hmm.
He'd probably be able to pass guard and either catch his own submission or just keep holding him down for 5 rounds.
Right. What I see you got the guitars behind you. What do you got hanging there?
We got these two that you can see clearly are Matt Heafy custom Epiphone Les Pauls. This one 7-string, 6-string, and then right behind me here is the Dave Mustaine Jackson Flying V. Nice.
We spoke probably 8 months ago a little bit about heavy metal music. I'm a huge fan. I know you're a huge fan. Your walkout music, Hatebreed?
Josta.
Josta, okay. I discovered Hatebreed, well, when the Perseverance album came out. What's that, 23 years ago at this point? How did you hook up with Jamie, and how did the song come about?
He was just on tour here one day, and just hooked up with him on social media, and he brought me back on the bus and stuff. He was on tour with Black Label Society, so we hung out with Zach Wilde a little bit too. And
awesome.
Yeah, we just became friends a little bit, and he mentioned writing a walkout song, and I said, hell yeah.
To my knowledge, no other UFC fighter's walkout music was written specifically for them. Is that right?
Andrei Arlovsky. Hatebreed did one for Andrei Arlovsky.
Okay. Awesome. I didn't know that.
I don't know of anyone else necessarily, but yeah. So we had to do it under the Josta banner because Hatebreed was banned from the UFC, actually. I don't know.
I remember the early days, they thought it was a white supremacist group or something.
Yeah, well, CNN did little news story about white
Mhm.
supremacy, and hate breed was included in there, which is the most ridiculous thing ever.
Yeah,
Those are mainstream media, right? And yeah, so UFC just, they're just trying to build their company and didn't want those problems.
sure. Um, Give me your Mount Rushmore of heavy metal music.
Oh, of heavy metal music.
Mhm,
I mean, you can't have it without Black Sabbath. That's a really simple one.
mhm.
Um, yeah, it's hard not to put Metallica up there. Um, and then Slayer, and then I'd probably go with Death last.
Okay. Man, Death's so underrated. They're awesome.
Yeah, I think those were all the most influential heavy metal bands in their own areas.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Um,
I think you could debate Pantera being up there too.
Speaking of Pantera, I don't know if this is difficult to talk about or not, but you were, I believe, at the Damage Plan concert um,
Mhm.
when Dimebag was killed. If you can talk a little bit about that experience, I can't imagine witnessing that.
It was a long time ago. I mean, it's not that difficult to talk about. It was in 2004, and I've talked about it a million times. So, yeah, I mean, it was a crazy night. I said it was a long time ago. I remember, little bits and pieces about it. I watched Dimebag get shot. Um, I watched the hostage, not the hostage, the perpetrator get shot, get his head practically blown off his shoulders. Um,
Gee.
I watched someone right next to me get shot, when he was firing off into the crowd, which was kind of interesting. I don't know if, so, I started to first thing that happened when I realized that Dimebag was actually shot was, we got to storm the stage. But apparently I was one of the only people that thought that. So, everybody going the opposite way. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't be the only guy storming the stage. That's not going to work out too well. So I started to run away also. And as I was running away, I don't know if you're running or walking, I had my back turned to him. And I just remember saying to myself, like, I'm not getting shot in the fucking back running from this guy. So I turned around, and literally right at that second, as I turned around, someone right next to me got shot. And I was like, oh shit, this is fucking real, because it doesn't really feel real, in the
Sure.
moment. I hid behind a little concrete pillar, hoping that he would have to reload. And I was like, that'd be an opportunity to go. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'm kind of, looking out, and again, it all kind of blurs, and it was, it happened pretty fast. And as I'm looking out, that's when I seen the off-duty officer come in the backstage and um, blew his head clean off his shoulders. And then the last thing I remember was, I don't remember going outside, but I do remember coming back inside, just to see what kind of the aftermath was. And
Hmm.
I remember seeing Dimebag laid out on the dance floor, where the mosh pit was, on the dance floor with his guitar in his hand and blood everywhere. And that was my last image of Dimebag right there.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's
Oh, I mean,
awful.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people had to go through it that night. There's nothing to feel sorry about except for Dimebag and his family. Um, for me, it wasn't like a traumatic experience or anything. It was just, it just is what it is. And, I dealt with it, and, it didn't traumatize me or anything. I was just like, you need to be vigilant and ready at all times, because you never know when shit's going to go down.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I want to talk about a friendship of yours. You are close with Mark the Hammer Coleman.
Yeah.
He is someone that I have looked up to literally my entire adult life, going back to the mid 90s in high school. Um, for fans of MMA, what we've been able to watch him go through in the last several years, and where he is now, how has that how special has it been for you being close to him to watch him overcome the problems he's gone through like he has?
Yeah. Same thing, man. Looked up to the guy for so long, and still look up to him to this day. I mean, he's an amazing person. And, to watch him come back from his down season of life has just been fascinating and inspiring, and it's really been cool to see, and not only come back from that, but also just living his best life now. So
Mhm.
you got to love the guy, and he brings a motivation, inspiration, energy into the gym every time he steps in there. So we love having him around.
I, not only is he probably the most inspirational story in MMA history, his life may be the most incredibly inspirational story in all of sports history. The things he's gone through and overcome, badass. um,
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the gym you have going on, your coffee, the ventures you have going on in life now that you're not an active fighter. What do you do to pass the time, to make money? What's life about now?
Yeah, the gym is the main thing. So I own a gym up in here in Columbus, Ohio. That's really the main thing I'm focused on, is building and expanding on that. I do some real estate on the side too. But that's kind of like I said, it says on the side, it's a side project, and kind of just the money that I get, put in real estate so that it doesn't lose. Right. But yeah, the gym's the main thing, man. It's a very fulfilling job, if you want to call it a job. And just helping out the community and watching these kids come from nothing to something, and watching people lose weight, get sober. um, it inspires me every day.
I can't remember if I read it or saw it in another interview, but I heard you say something about you came to the realization that the first half of your life was for you, and that you were going to use the second half of your life for everyone else. That's awesome, man. How did that mindset occur to you?
Well, just you got to find what's fulfilling in your life, right? And I've learned over time that helping others building this gym, and helping others has just been the most fulfilling thing I've done, and it's more fulfilling than even when I win my own fight. Watching the kid come home with just a little local grappling match medal or something,
Hmm.
that feels better than when I won a fight. So, I just realized like how awesome it is to help others, and brings me a lot of fulfillment.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Um, as you know, the reason I do these interviews is to try to inspire and help people that are going through shit. If you had a message to share with people that are struggling, what would that be?
Mm, usually it's dependent on the situation, right? Everybody's a little bit different. If I had to make a single thing, is I hear way too many people say I'm trying. I get so sick of hearing that word. So people I think they just need to learn how to stop trying and start doing. Um, and part of doing is, at least for me, see, one of the difference between me and other people is like I'm not an addict. I don't have the
Hmm.
disease. Um, I've certainly done my share of drugs and partying and stuff, um, but I don't have the disease. So this may or may not relate to people that have the disease, right? That I think that's a different situation where they probably need more
Hmm.
professional help. But for me, the way that I was able to stop and get out of that is I just changed my identity, right? Which everybody can do these days. But
Hmm.
the all I did was just I'd wake up in the morning and be like, I'm a fucking warrior. I'm not a drug. What would a warrior do today? Oh, he would go for a run. So then I go for a run. And in the afternoon, what would a warrior do this afternoon? Well, he'd probably rest and eat some good food. You know what I mean? Like it would just have
Hmm.
that in my mind all day long. And that was why I got the immortal tattoo to begin with. Actually, he's I can do whatever I want and nobody can stop me. And
Right.
I wrote a mantra on my wall, like a mission statement, a personal mission statement, and just reading that every day, man. Just looking at it and seeing, like, this is my purpose. This is what I'm here for. This is who I am. You got to remind yourself who you are. We forget that
Hmm.
shit. It's easy to get away from it. So just keeping that reminder every day went a long way for me.
I love that, man. What's the best way for fans of yours to keep up with you and what you got going on these days?
Definitely social media. I am the immortal, Instagram and Twitter. Um, Facebook, the immortal Matt Brown. That's definitely the easiest way. Yeah.
Okay. Matt, that's all the questions I have for you, man. I want to say thank you so much for sharing your time, blessing this channel with your presence, not getting pissed and telling me to go away after all the months of hassling you. Um,
No worries.
I'll get this uploaded and I'll send you a copy. If for any reason you don't like it, let me know. I'll take it down, man.
No, it's fine, bro. Yeah, it's all good.
All right. You can, once you get the copy, feel free to do whatever you want with it.
Guys, I'm
What was
sorry.
that?
I'm texting with my daughter while we're doing this.
Oh, no. Hey, you're doing good. I can't do both those things at once.
I know.
All right, man. Have a great rest of your night and be safe out there.
No worries, bro. Thank you, man.
Have a good one.
All right, see you.